It was April 1983, so next year will be my 30th anniversary of being down here. So when people talk to you about, oh, we've done 30 markets, I go, oh, I've done 30 years here. It was my first time in a sales organisation, so I was working for Jim Henson, for Henson International TV. And so I was the skivvy at the bottom. So unpacking loads of trunks with flyers and 3/4 inch tapes in those days, no DVDs, nothing on an iPad and all that kind of thing, which we just literally had to lug. And I finished unpacking my stand and I thought, oh, I have something else to do. So I went down and offered my assistant to Central TV, as they were, so got to know all these kind of people. And that was the start of it. One of the funniest was something that Peter Rhodes was very keen for us. He was actually the instigator of it, even though he claims he wasn't. So we had, when we were with Muppets, the actual Kermits are very, very valuable because they only do like a limited edition of them. There's not like 8,000 sitting in a warehouse. So we had this spoof that we did that we pretended that Kermit had been kidnapped, which we then got the Sun to write about it. And this was obviously a ploy by Peter to get just much more publicity not in the trade papers, but in the national newspapers. But it worked very well. So we had a very amusing time pretending that Kermit had been kidnapped, but of course he hadn't. The first period, I was hired by Peter Orton and Mark Grenside as their secretary. We didn't have PAs in those days. We were all secretaries, and I moved up after about a year of being their secretary into being a sales assistant. And Peter was the ultimate salesman. Sadly, no longer with us anymore. But he used to stride down the Croisette, with large cigar in one hand, having stayed up all night, and still used to be absolutely on the metal for doing the sales. And he was absolutely brutal with us. It was like, get out there, get on that corridor, find that buyer. And we all had colour-coded buyers and buyer badges, so it was actually much easier to find the buyers. And it is much smaller because none of the Riviera and none existed. So we were all in the basement because it was the first year I think the Palais was open. And can you believe it? Everybody used to smoke away. It was like some nightclub downstairs, loads of smoke and everything going on, and nobody saw the light of day ever because you were all day in the Palais and then you stayed up all night. So even back then it was a truly global business. So for me it was riveting because you as you started in your sales career, you usually start with the smaller countries. So if you kind of mess things up, it didn't really hit the bottom line too much. So therefore you got the most amazing exposure to absolutely everybody. But I guess as the years have progressed, it's technology that's driven it. And now, we years ago, we used to sit there and argue about 3 runs over 5 years, and that was about it. Now there's VOD and copyright protection, and what window is this going to be in, and how does that work? And it's a much, much more technical conversation. So because we have a big buying team here, so they all come and have breakfast with me at 8:30, however much sleep they have or hadn't had, because it's the only time I really get to see them because they're out across the Palais all day long about, what new shows, have they found a new format, that something very interesting that they've heard at one of the sessions maybe or whatever. So it's a kind of good way of getting us all together. And then really I don't see them until the following morning because we're all out doing different things. This market has been different because for the first time I've had a stand to go back to. So, and we've been spending a lot of time, Stuart Murphy, who's my head of entertainment channels, is over with me as well, listening with to the buyers, the international buyers, because I'm very conscious of being a child of the international marketplace, that I want our commissioners and our channels to feel very vibrant and have quite an international perspective, because I think that will set us apart from most of the people in the UK. I think what one has to just remember is how fast this business moves. But at the end of the day, it's good content, great shows, great storytelling that drives this business. And you look at a lot of derivative material, that is out there, and they're just not going to cut through. And I think particularly for us in pay television, where we have to have this very creme de la creme, high-end content, it's very, very important that we spend a lot of time talking to people down here about how we can collaborate, because these things are so expensive to do. And so hence we've got 2 co-productions in the works with Canal Plus at the moment and things like that. And I think that's, co-production's been around forever and a day, and it's still here. So how we can, find and work with great creatives and then find a way of getting that to our customers via all sorts of different pipes and platforms is really interesting.